Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving back into the works of Mr. Eliphas Levi. This is Transcendental Magic, it's Doctrine and Ritual. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everyone, but people do find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology or just piss you off, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above, in the box down below, along with the original source material and the link for my book, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. With that being said, we are going to dive in and continue our exploration of Transcendental Magic, its Doctrine and Ritual, with Part 2, Chapter 2, Magical Equilibrium. We may get to Chapter 3, depends on the timing. Equilibrium is the consequence of two forces. It is the balancing of two forces. If two forces are absolutely and invariably equal, the equilibrium will be immobility, and therefore the negation of life. Movement is the result of an alternate preponderance. The impulsion given to one of the sides of a balance necessarily determines the motions of the other. Thus, contraries act on one another throughout all nature by correspondence and analogical connection. All life is composed of an aspiration and a respiration, that is, breathing in and breathing out. Creation is the assumption of a shadow to serve as a bound to light, of a void to serve as space for the plenitude, of a passive fructified principle to sustain and realize the power of the active generating principle. All nature is bisexual. That does not mean that they have sex with everyone. It means that they have both genders. See the second law of creation. And the movement which produces the appearances of death and life is a continual generation. God loves the void which he made in order to fill it. Science loves the ignorance which it enlightens. Strength loves the weakness which it supports. Good loves the apparent evil which glorifies it. Day is desirous of night and pursues it unceasingly round the world. Love is at once a thirst and a plenitude which must diffuse itself. He who gives receives, and he who receives gives. Movement is a continual interchange. To know the law of this change, to be acquainted with the alternative or simultaneous proportion of these forces, is to possess the first principles of the great magical arcanum, which constitutes true human divinity. Again, I'm going to refer you to the 8 laws of creation, one of which states that you are not a god. Things are beyond your powers. You have access to an awful lot of things. Being truly humanly divine is not one of them, right? You are a representative of the divine just as much as I am, just as much as the dogs are, or the birds are, or the wind is. All of it is an equal representation of the divine. And so human divinity is not set apart from anybody else's divinity, any other creature's divinity, any other substance's divinity. All of it is part of the one. See the 8 laws of creation. You do need the balance, right? The law of gender states that there is both masculine and feminine in all things, and you need both, right? Without the feminine, you don't gestate, you don't create, right? Without the masculine, you don't start the process, you don't penetrate, you don't start nothing. It takes both. Without decay, there is no life. We get decay from plants, we compost it, we give it to new plants. It's a cycle, breaking down, building up, and you do indeed need both of them. That is absolutely an important thing to know. You do need to be balanced. Equilibrium within yourself is the balance between the 7 virtues and the 7 vices. Once again, you are not to cleave to either Boaz or Yakin. You are to walk through the middle. So, therefore, don't cleave to the dark, nor cleave to the light. Instead, balance the two. Balance your 7 vices with your 7 virtues, and then you can perform all of the magical acts you want with pretty much free will, right? There are limitations. There are things that you cannot, should not do. But other than that, there's a lot of things within your personal will that you will absolutely be able to do, including healing yourself. Back to the text. Scientifically, we can appreciate the various manifestations of the universal movement through electric or magnetic phenomena. Those are the same. There's need to be no or, right? Electricity and magnetism are interchangeable. Electrical apparatuses, above all, materially and positively reveal the affinities and antipathies of certain substances. The marriage of copper with zinc, making bronze, the action of all metals in the galvanic pile, are perpetual and unmistakable revelations. Let physicists seek and find out, ever will the Kabbalist explain the discoveries of science. The human body is subject, like the earth, to a dual law. It attracts and it radiates. That is true. If you're unfamiliar with that concept, the fundamental human magnetics, I'll link the video up here where we discuss that in great length, right? The human body makes magnetics. It is formed by magnetics, and your circulation is due to magnetics. All of that is a magnetic. And so, yes, you do. You attract and you radiate. That is the principles of magnetism, is it both repels and attracts, retracts and repels, repels and attracts. And so it is definitely, this part is definitely true, right? It is magnetized by an androgen magnetism and reacts, androgen means two-sided, and reacts on the two powers of the soul. Yes, the light and the dark. Find the balance. The intellectual and the sensitive. No, what? I guess that means of the senses, right? Inversely, but in proportion to the alternating preponderances of the two sexes in their physical organism. The art of the magnetizer consists wholly in the knowledge and use of this law. To polarize the action and impart to the agent a bisexual and alternated force is the method still unknown and sought vainly for directing the phenomena of magnetism at will, but tact, most experienced, and great precision in the interior movements are required to prevent the confusion of the signs of magnetic aspiration with those of respiration. We must also be perfectly acquainted with occult anatomy and the special temperament of the persons on whom we are operating. Bad faith and bad will in subjects constitute the greatest hindrance to the direction of magnetism. Women, above all, who are essentially and invariably actresses, who take pleasure in impressing others so that they may impress themselves, and are themselves the first to be deceived when playing their neuratio melodramas, are the true black magic of magnetism. Wow, that is a hell of a statement. That's a little bit off balance, right? You are blaming an entire gender for something. That's a little bit unbalanced. I had a comment this morning, blaming a whole ethnicity for things. If you are blaming a whole group of people for anything, whether it's men, women, black, white, religious affiliations, if you are blaming an entire group of people based upon the actions of a few people within it, you're an idiot. Plain and simple. You are not cut out for this type of work. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't reform your attitude. I used to be a racist. It is no longer a thing for me. That was a spiritual revelation. It came through seeking the truth and being willing to accept it. If you're going to blame the Jews for everything, you're an idiot. If you don't blame the Jews for anything, you're equally an idiot, right? There is good and bad in everything. No one group is responsible for all the problems in the world. And if you believe that they are, you are deceived. You are looking for someone to blame. Might be playing into that victim mentality just a little bit, right? If this group is repressing you, when it's not really a thing, then maybe you are the problem. Back to the text. So it is forever impossible that magnetizers who are uninitiated in these supreme secrets and unassisted by the lights of the Kabbalah should govern this refractory and fugitive element. To be master of woman, we must distract and deceive her skillfully by allowing her to suppose that it is she who is deceiving us. That is remarkably bad advice, right? You should not be deceiving people as a practice, right? There are a few exceptions to that rule, right? If there is immediate danger going to come from telling the truth, by all means, lie. But for the most part, no, right? Distract and deceive her skillfully. No. If you are around a woman, right? It's not women, but a woman who is acting in this matter, remove yourself. It's the easiest thing to do. You don't have to deal with anyone. There is not a single person on the planet that you are obligated to give your time to. And that includes your adult children, right? If they are disrespectful or just little assholes, don't deal with them. Make them understand that. Right? It is hard. I'm not saying that it is easy, and I don't have to deal with that. I don't have assholes as children, but some people do, right? Some people have assholes as parents. And so you are perfectly able to cut off anybody, and you should. Dealing with people like this, who you have to deceive and distract in order to do what you need to do, you don't need to be dealing with them. That's a bad idea. Leave them the hell alone. Like, you don't have to associate with people. Back to the text. This advice, I do not believe that that is advice, which we offer chiefly to magnetizing physicians, might also find its place and application in conjugal polity. Wow. Wow. Oh, you know what he's saying right here, right? Deceive your spouse. That's what he's saying. Ain't no wonder his child bride left him, right? He was a middle-aged man, married a child, and she wound up being smarter than him. Men can produce two breathings at his pleasure, one warm and the other cold. He can also project either the active or passive light at will, but he must acquire the consciousness of this power by habitually dwelling thereon. All right, let's talk. Two breathings. I'm not sure what he's talking about there. One warm and the other cold. I would need more explanation for that. But this next part, he can also project either the active or passive light at his will. Yes, right? That is in my book. That is one of the things in the playlist. There are two sources of power. One of them is light. The other one is dark, right? That is how I visualize them. It doesn't necessarily have to be the way that you do. Other people see the chakras in different colors. For me, the way that I have described these things works, right? Now, to me, there is the grounding and the penetrative. It is demonstrated by the nature, right? The grounding is like the earth. It is dark. It is absorptive. It takes in and nurtures. It is feminine. The masculine is the sunlight coming down and burning things away, penetrating and changing, creating life, making photosynthesis happen. That is the masculine aspect. And in order to do what I have done, in the manner that I have done it, in the way that I explain it in the book and in the playlist, is by using both equally, not either one separately. Other systems tell you to pull one light from the wrong direction, right? And then that's it. And they wonder why they do not get the effects that I have, right? I don't claim to be a master, but I am at least an adept because I have healed myself in at least 3 ways. I just yesterday got cleared on the 4th one, right? I'm just at 2 months. I'm able to walk again. I wonder what happened. I wonder how that came to be, right? And the doctor's like, this is doing really well. How are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing great. He's like, this is amazing. That's from the doctor. It's because of what I do. I am practicing magic. I heal myself on a regular basis. I dwell in this light. But I learned about it without habitually dwelling, right? Now, it's due to meditative practices. Everything that I have done, prayer, fasting, and meditation are the keys. Prayer is talking to God, fasting is preparing to listen back, and meditation is actually listening. And it was through that process that this was revealed to me. Partially from an amalgamation of everybody else's systems, but intuitionally given to me through divine revelation so that I could do this. I asked for healing. I got shown how to heal myself, and I have to tell you how to do it. I have a playlist, or a couple of them. I have a book. I have the member videos. All of these things tell you how to do this, right? With both the masculine and the feminine. Intrinsically necessary, as far as I am concerned, for any magical works. If you are only dealing with one side of the equation, you're doing it wrong. At least according to my results, right? Like that, when I say you did it wrong, it is not to say that there is not another system that may be able to work. But according to the system which I have made to work, you're wrong, right? According to what I do, you're wrong. Not necessarily that you cannot do these things in other ways. You can make compacts and get things accomplished. It's just not smart. Right? There are other ways to do things, and some of them probably are equally effective without the added implications of making compacts. But that's not to say that they don't work. It is to say that according to what I do, that doesn't work. Back to the text. The same manual gesture may alternately aspire and respire what we are accustomed to call the fluid, and the magnetizer will himself be warned of the result of his intention by an alternative sensation of warmth and cold in the hand, or in both hands when both are being used. It is not just warm and cold to me, right? I literally feel the pressure as it moves. Maybe it's in my mind. I don't think so, but it is entirely possible. It can be entirely psychosomatic. I am aware of that, right? But both hands, to me, can be used. It appears to be that it is easier to take energy in through the left hand and easier to put energy out through the right hand, but you can do both with either hand. It just seems to flow a little bit better for me in that particular order. Might be because I'm left-handed. It might be the only way that it works. I don't have a resource pool big enough to tell you that. But what I can tell you is that you can, right? At least through my experience, yes, right? And it's not just warmth and cold, at least in the way that I talk about it. No, I'm not able to visualize, so I don't use that. I use isometrics to move the energy, right? That is, using the resistance of your own muscles. And through that process, I've learned how to pull the energy and move it where I need it to be. Other people use different ways of moving the energy. May be equally effective. The way that I do it is the way that I do it, and is described in some extensive detail in my book. So, you can also do this with your feet, right? Your feet both absorb and radiate in the exact same manner that your hands do, but it's governed by a different chakra, right? Your heart governs your hands. Your base governs your feet. And so there's slightly different effects to the things that you can do with those particular outlets. You also emanate from your heart and all the rest of them, but the heart does it best, right? It really feeds your divine aura. And so all of these things to say that, yes, this part at least is true. All right. Or in both hands when both are being used, which sensation the subject should experience at the same time, but in a contrary sense, that is, with a wholly opposed alternative. And yes, if you're pulling, you should be pushing, right there. You should not be storing energy within yourself. Energy is meant to flow. It flows through you naturally with you doing absolutely nothing. If you are doing magical practices and you accumulate energy with the intention of storing it, you're going to create some blockages which will absolutely reverberate within you. You should, if you are taking energy in, be releasing that energy into whatever the intended target is, which should be in accordance with the 8 laws of creation. Back to the text. The pentagram, or sign of the microcosmos, represents, among other magical mysteries, the double sympathy of the human extremities with each other and with the circulation of the astral light in the human body. Thus, when a man is represented in the star of the pentagram, as may be seen in the occult philosophy of Agrippa, it should be observed that the head corresponds in masculine sympathy with the right foot, and in feminine sympathy with the left foot, and that the right hand corresponds in the same way with the left hand and the left foot, and reciprocally of the other hand. Now, this may be in accordance with what I was talking about earlier, with using both, right? But it is easier with the one side than the other to do things, right? This is saying that the feminine sympathy is on the left side. Well, that would be the absorptive side. That would explain why it is easier to pull energy with my left hand and easier to push with my right, right? Feminine, masculine. Now, whether that is true or not is entirely speculative, but it seems to fit according to what I know. This must be borne in mind when making magnetic passes. If we seek to govern the whole organism and bind all members by their proper chains of analogy and natural sympathy, the same knowledge is necessary for the use of the pentagram in the conjuration of spirits, and in the evocation of errant spirits in the astral light, vulgarly called necromancy, as we shall explain in the 5th chapter of this ritual. It is important to note, and some of you already know what I'm going to note right here, but it is very important to note, as we have seen, that Mr. Elias was not able to do this in any reliable manner whatsoever, and therefore is probably not somebody you should be taking advice from. Now, personally, I have opened myself up to spirits in my meditative practices. I have 0 takers. I have not had any outsiders come in and talk to me, whether it was an elemental or on the 7th plane of existence, either the 6th or the 7th. Neither one of them. I've had 0 occurrence of that since I have opened myself up to it. None of the things that I do rely at all upon you conjuring a spirit, evocating anything, or definitely practicing necromancy. So there may be, once again, there may be cases where this is a good idea, but it's probably not. Right? Dealing with the dead's probably not a good idea. Messing with the entities is extremely tricky, simply because there are good entities and there are bad entities, and the good entities cannot lie to you, but the bad entities can. They can tell you that they're the good entities. If you don't believe that that is a possibility, you should reread Genesis. There are several instances of that happening, beginning with Abram. Back to the text. But it is well to observe here that every action promotes a reaction, and that in magnetizing others or influencing them magically, we establish between them and ourselves a current of contrary but analogous influence, which may subject us to them instead of subjecting them to us, as happens frequently enough in these operations, which have the sympathy of love for their object. Yes, I tell you repeatedly, do nothing without consent, right? And when you are done, close it. Whatever it is you're doing, close it off. Do not leave anything open. When you heal someone, even with consent, you cannot fully close that link. It doesn't matter who it is, you should be very careful who you lend your energy to. Do nothing outside of consent, because that amplifies that not being able to close the link. You can be entirely drained by people who you have voluntarily linked yourself to and not realize that it was a bad idea. That is not to say that you should not heal people. Always have consent, but you can do it. Make sure that your motivations are correct. Make sure you are aligned with the 8 laws of creation. These things reduce that negative effect. I am linked to a couple of people, but there is usefulness in that. I no longer have to lay hands on some people in order to give them energy. I can do it across distances. And there is a consent that has already been established for those type of situations. So this is true, and you should be exceedingly careful in all of your magical works, but most especially if you are dealing with someone else. Most especially if you are dealing with someone else without consent. Be very, very careful. Back to the text. Hence, it is highly essential to be on our defense while we are attacking, so as to not aspire on the left while we respire on the right. The magical androgyne depicted in the frontispiece of the ritual has Solve inscribed upon the right and Cogula upon the left arm, which corresponds to the symbolical figure of the architects of the Second Temple, who bore their swords in one hand and their trowel in the other. While building, they had also to defend their work and disperse their enemies. Nature herself does likewise, destroying and regenerating at the same time. Now, according to the allegory of Du Tao's magical calendar, man, that is to say the initiate, is the ape of nature, who confines him by a chain but makes him act unceasingly, imitating the proceedings and works of his divine mistress and imperishable model. The alternate use of contrary forces, warmth after cold, mildness after severity, love after anger, etc., is the secret of perpetual motion and the permanence of power. Coquettes feel this instinctively, and hence they make their admirers pass from hope to fear, from joy to despondency. To operate and again, right, this is the anti-feminine here, right? Coquettes implies the wanton woman. This appears to be a recurring theme for our dear narrator here. To operate always on the same side and in the same number is to overweight one plate of the balance, and the complete destruction of equilibrium is the speedy result. Continual caressings beget satiety, disgust, and antipathy, just as constant coldness and severity in the long run alienate and discourage affection. So, having your needs met by your partner begets disgust and antipathy, right? Satiety means that you are satisfied. That's what satiety means. You are satisfied. So it begets satisfaction, disgust, and antipathy. Just as constant coldness and severity alienate and discourage affection. Now, these things are in part true, right? If you are continuously having sexual intercourse, you will get to the point where it's kind of like, yeah, whatever, right? But it shouldn't be like that. If you are in a state of continual caressings, you are not balanced between love and chastity. And if you are constantly cold, you are not balanced between or lust and chastity, not love. That is a different level, right? Lust and chastity. So you are meant to be lustful in certain instances, not continuously. Right? It is unbalanced to act in either one of these ways, and that is a destruction of equilibrium. So, yeah. An unvarying and ardent fire in the alchemy calcines the first matter and not seldom explodes the hermetic vessel. The heat of lime and mineral manure must be substituted at regular intervals for the heat of flame. And so also in magic, the works of wrath or severity must be tempered by those of beneficence and love. And if the will of the operator be always at the same tension and directed along the same line, great weariness will ensue, together with a species of moral impotence. Once again, balance is intrinsic to doing this correctly. Once again, if you are cleaving to either one of the pillars, you are not balanced. And so, you should not work any magic whatsoever if you are consumed with wrath, period. Or severity, period. Working black magic against someone is a remarkably bad idea due to the 8 laws of creation. You shouldn't do it. I can't make you not. People are going to try it. When you do, you will know that I was telling you the truth. I tell you all the time. I give all kinds of warnings. You are free to take them. You are free to leave them alone. But if you don't take them, you will probably come back for them. This is one of those. Do not do any work when you are out of balance. That includes being out of balance towards love. It does. You need to be balanced, right? Too much to either side is bad. You are meant to live a life of balance. It is intrinsically necessary, and I use that word intentionally. Go to the Bible study if you do not know the difference between needed and necessary. It is absolutely necessary to perform magical works with equilibrium. If you are not equilibrated, you will face reverberations, and they will not be pleasant. Back to the text. Thus, the Magus should not live altogether in his laboratory among his Athanor elixirs and pentacles. However devouring be the glance of that Circe, who is called occult power, we must know how to confront her on occasion with the sword of Ulysses, and how to withdraw our lips for a time from the chalice which she offers us. A magical operation should always be followed by a rest of equal length and a distraction analogous but contrary to its object, To strive continually against nature in order to her rule and conquest is to risk reason and life. Paracelsus dared to do so, but even in the warfare itself, he employed equilibrated forces and opposed the intoxication of wine to that of intelligence. All right, let's talk about this real quick. A magical operation should always be followed by a rest of equal length and a distraction analogous but contrary to its object. All right, so you should rest. That is, again, one of those intrinsic things. You should never take up any magical operation when you are tired, when you are hungry, when you are distracted, when there are outside influences of any kind. Yes, that includes fasting. And if you are consumed by hunger when you are trying to do this, you will pull in wrong things. I know that goes against what everybody else will tell you. I don't care. And another thing that is going to go against everything else everybody else is going to tell you, right? A distraction, analogous to, but contrary in its object. So, something close to what you were trying to do, but opposite. Now, there are people who will tell you to use negative attraction for everything, right? There are times for positive attraction. There are times for negative attraction. They should be used carefully, both of them, because once again, there are reverberations according to the 8 laws of creation. But if you are only using negative, you're not going to get the effects that you want. One example of it is, if you have a disease, right, or an injury, right? I have a very recent thing that I can talk about on this. My leg was broken. I know, it's getting old, right? It's only been 2 months, y'all. So, my leg was broken. I could have focused on black magic from that. I absolutely refuse to do that, right? I do not bear ill will. I have given it to the law. The law will take care of it. I perform no magical services or physical services in that direction. And one of the things that I have done through this entire process is move the energy in my leg. Right? And one of the wonderful things that came about from having my tibia broken was the fact that I got some really good confirmation in some of the things that I talk about here. Negative attraction of the energies through the wound has sped its healing. I practice with negative and positive attraction in it, and the negative is more effective. So there is absolutely times when negative is the thing to do, but there is also times when positive is the thing to do. I did not, however, do this. A distraction analogous but contrary to its object. I didn't spend all day striving continually against nature in order to our role in conquest, focusing on this. It took about 15-20 minutes a day, tops. That is going through the entire process, prayer and meditation, not fasting, because don't do magical works when you're fasting. Fasting is for listening, not for performing. And so I have, and again, if you're injured, don't fast. That is another one. Unless you got a little bit extra, right, then you can fast, but even then, it's a bad idea. Your body needs nutrients to heal. A broken bone needs calcium. If you're not drinking milk or eating cheese, you're not going to get enough calcium to help heal your bones. You're not going to be able to redirect that calcium to the bone in order for it to heal. Moving the energy in a negative way works better for healing, apparently, at least in this one instance. That was something that came from this that was beautiful. But this analogous but contrary would be, all right, I perform this magical act one time and then I just walk on it, right? That you have the intrinsic faith that it's going to be perfectly fine right off the bat, and you're going to wind up back in the hospital, right? The contrary also is, like I've seen somebody give this advice, to set your mind that there is nothing wrong with you and then just go about your life as though there is nothing wrong with you, and that is stupid, right? If you have cancer, you have cancer. Not acknowledging it is not going to get rid of it. It's not. Not taking effective steps for the betterment of yourself is not going to help. Now, there's all kinds of conspiracy theories out there about cancer. Don't eat sugar if you've had cancer, it'll starve it. Maybe. There's no conclusive evidence. There's all kinds of things like that. Maybe. There's no conclusive evidence. in the exact same way that I did, right? I spent 15 minutes a day healing myself. I didn't spend all day. I didn't spend all day worrying about the problem, right? Even if it was a bigger problem. Spend some time on it. Absolutely set your intentions, pull the energy through yourself, and then let it go, right? Don't intentionally do analogous but contrary. You can. It's not going to affect much, probably, maybe. But if you do it unintentionally, right? Don't focus upon the problem because that attracts more of the problem. But for a short time every day, do that. Focus on it. Put the negative pull on it. That works for healing, apparently. Maybe it's positive. Maybe different injuries take different things. I haven't had a whole lot of experience with that, right? I have moved the energy both positively and negatively through my throat and my back and my shoulder. And I didn't have the same assurance that one was more effective than the other until I had the broken leg. But part of that also is when I started doing this, I wasn't here, right? I wasn't at this point in my life. I was following in faith something that I was entirely unsure about. And it worked. And so I'm here to tell you about it. Be exceedingly careful about the practices that you put into place and the intentionality behind those practices. If you are deliberately focusing on the opposite effect of whatever you're trying to do, contrary to its object, you may get some unintended consequences. Just be careful. Don't dwell on it. Spend your time on it. Right? Hopefully that's clear. And again, that is me speaking from experience, right? This is not me just saying something because I read it somewhere. This is something that I have put into practice and is working in my life again, right? For the fourth time. All right. Back to the text. So was Paracelsus, a man of inspiration and miracles. Yet his life was exhausted by this devouring activity, or rather, its vestment, and was rapidly rent and worn out. But men like Paracelsus can use and abuse fearlessly. They well know that they can no more die than grow old, here below. And that again is, of course, the eternal soul, not the eternal body. Nobody has ever had an eternal body. Nobody ever will have an eternal body. The seeking of it is foolish, right? You should be healthy. You should take care of yourself to the best of your ability. You should not take extreme measures to prolong your life. You're going to wind up miserable. Back to the text. Nothing induces us towards joy so effectually as sorrow. Nothing is nearer to sorrow than joy. Hence, the uninstructed operator is astounded by attaining the very opposite of his proposed results, because he does not know how to cross or alternate his action. And again, alternation, right? Crossing and alternation would be balancing. He seeks to bewitch his enemy, which is remarkably stupid, and himself becomes ill and miserable. That is the natural outflow of that. There is no other alternative that will come. This is what will happen if you practice black magic. If you are putting a curse upon your enemy, it will come back to you. Period. That is the law. See the laws of creation. He desires to make himself loved, and he consumes himself for women who deride him. He endeavors to make gold, and he exhausts all his resources. His torture is that of Tantalus, eternally. Ever does the water flow back when he stoops down to drink. The ancients, in their symbols and magical operations, multiplied the signs of the duad so that its law of equilibrium might be remembered. In their evocations, they invariably constructed 2 altars and immolated 2 victims, one white and one black. The operator, whether male or female, holding a sword in one hand and a wand in the other, had one foot shod and the other bared. At the same time, either 1 or 3 persons were required for magical works, because the duad would be immobility or death in the absence of the equilibrating motor. And when a man and a woman participated in the ceremony, the operator was either a virgin, a hermaphrodite, or a child. None of this is a necessity, right? You can absolutely perform magical works with someone else. It is a multiplicative effect, but you should absolutely be assured that you are aligned and in accordance with the 8 laws of creation for both of you. It becomes more difficult the more people you add to make sure that those intentions are correct, but you can do it. If you get to 3, that is a very significant thing, right? 3 people coming into accordance makes a big difference. It does, but again, being in accordance is a very, very big thing and kind of hard to do. The more people you bring into it, the harder it is to do, so keep that in mind. These people out here in the woods with a coven of 50 people are probably not going to get their intentions met. Back to the text. And again, right, the operator was either a virgin, a hermaphrodite, or a child. None of that is a necessity. Not a single step in that is a necessity for any magical works. Just take that. Now, I shall be asked whether the eccentricity of these rites is arbitrary. Yes, it is. And whether its one end is the exercise of the will by the mere multiplications of difficulties in magical work. I answer that in magic there is nothing arbitrary. That is not true, right? And again, I am saying this from experience. I have not partaken in a single ceremony. Right? I pray, you can consider that a ceremony if you wish. I meditate, you can consider that a ceremony if you wish. But there's no athames, there's no wands, there's no stones, there's no incense, there's none of that. Not a single bit of that. Every single bit of that, to me, is completely arbitrary. Every single bit of it. Now, there are tools. You can use the tools. Ceremonies and rituals are tools. Just as much as this canife is a tool, and just as much as this lighter is a tool, they do nothing without you, without your intentions. They can serve to amplify things. I want to start a fire. It's handy to have a fire starter. You can use them, but whether or not they are needed, to me, they're not. I use them. I've got stones here. I point my stones out all the time, right? This one's for clearing the third eye. I've got more stones back here. I've got wands. I've got all of this stuff. I don't use them, right? I have them. I do use my stones, right? This is good for filtering energy. I pull energy through the stone. I push energy through another stone. It helps to change your energy, but that is only because it is the intentionality that makes the difference. You can imbue any ritual with your power, and it will be somewhat effective. There may be some rituals that are absolutely intrinsic to certain magical acts, but I have not found a single one of them. And so, to me, it is completely arbitrary that you stand in a circle and draw a pentagram on the ground with an athame. That is completely arbitrary. It makes no difference whatsoever in anything that I have done. And so, I answer this, that there is, in magic, all kinds of things arbitrary. The only thing that is not arbitrary is your will, right? Your mental alchemy. That is the part that is intrinsic. That is the part that is necessary. Everything else is extra. Everything else is extra. I answer that in magic there is nothing arbitrary, and because everything is ruled and predetermined by the one universal dogma of Hermes, that of analogy in the 3 worlds. And I also disagree with that. I have done nothing with analogy of 3 worlds, right? I didn't idealize the perfect person and then call that into me for healing. That's not what I did. What I did was pull the negative energy up, pull the positive energy down, meet them, equilibrate them in the area that I wanted healed. That can be considered a ceremony, but it is as baseline as you can possibly get. There was no names called, and not a single one, not even the name of God, not even the word of creation. Back to the text. Each sign corresponds to an idea and to the special form of an idea. Each act expresses a volition corresponding to a thought and formulates the analogies of that thought and that will. The rites are, therefore, prearranged by the science itself. The uninstructed person who is not acquainted with the three powers is subject to their mysterious fascination. The sage understands those powers and makes them the instrument of his will, but when they are accomplished with exactitude and faith, they are never ineffectual. Out of these two words, this one's the important one. All magical instruments must be duplicated. Must is a big word. There must be 2 swords, 2 wands, 2 cups, 2 chafing dishes, 2 pentacles, and 2 lamps. 2 vestments must be worn, one over the other, and they must be of contrary colors, a rule still followed by Catholic priests. And either no metal, or 2 at the least, must be worn. The crowns of laurel, rue, mugwort, or vervain must, in like manner, be double. And I'm just going to go ahead and say this now, and it's probably going to hold for the rest of this particular paragraph. No. Right? This is arbitrary. This is one of those things. There is nothing that requires this. And that's including the law of genders. Right? No. And that's not to say that you can't. Again, tools have power when you invest them, but everything in this is a tool. Everything in this, you're investing your power in. And if you're investing your power in 2 swords, you're dividing your power. If you're investing in 2 swords, 2 wands, and 2 cups, you're dividing it into 6 pieces. That's kind of stupid. One of them is used in evocations while the other is burnt. The crackling which it makes and the curls of the smoke which it produces being observed like an augury. Nor is the observance vain, for in the magical work all the instruments of art are magnetized by the operator. That is true. Right? Magnetized by the operator. It is your faith that makes it happen, not the tool. Oh, right, I lost my spot. Magical work, all the instruments of art are magnetized by the operator. The air is charged with his perfumes. The fire which he has consecrated is subject to his will. The forces of nature seem to hear and answer him. He reads in all forms the modifications and complements of his thought. He perceives the water agitated and, as it were, bubbling of itself, the fire blazing up or extinguishing suddenly, the leaves of the garland rustling, the magical rod moving spontaneously, and strange, unknown voices passing through the air. It was in such evocations that Julian beheld the beloved phantoms of his dethroned gods, and was appalled at their decrepitude and pallor, because they were not there. I am aware that Christianity has forever suppressed ceremonial magic. That is not true. Have you been to a mass intention? And that it severely prescribes the evocations and sacrifices of the old world. That is not true. Right? They still very much accept the sacrifice, but now it is not a literal. Now they require you to accept the human sacrifice of this person 2,000 years ago. Right? It doesn't prescribe evocations or sacrifices. Evocations? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Have you ever been to a Latin Mass? Have you ever heard the singings and the intonations? Have you heard Franciscan monks sing? That is intonations. Evocations and intonations are the same thing. You are called, I'm praying to Mary. Intervene for me, O Mary, you blessed virgin among women. That's an evocation. Are you telling me that Christianity, Catholics in particular, do not do that? Are you kidding? Evocation. I pray in the name of Jesus. Find in the Bible where it tells you to pray in the name of Jesus. From Jesus. And Jesus told you the entire time he was alive, pray to my Father, not to me. Back to the text. It is not, therefore, our intention to give a new ground for their existence by revealing the antique mysteries after the lapse of so many centuries. Even in this very order of phenomena, our experiences have been scholarly researches and nothing more. Really? 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 Is that true? Seems to me, I recall, that we did a chapter on necromancy, and you told us that you were performing these things. You told us that you were performing these things with intention, and that it turned out not the way that you expected. Right? So that was a scholarly research and nothing more. You weren't actually practicing, you were just researching. Yeah, okay. Now, it is important to note that these things did not work for Mr. Levi. That's the problem, right? There is a lot of problems with Mr. Levi, but one of the main ones is that he couldn't get the magic to work. He was here telling you as if he had some knowledge, but he turned away. And once you have the truth, you don't turn back to the lie. And so if he actually possessed the truth, then he would not have died in the manner that he did. And by that, I don't mean the cause of his death, but the fact that he turned away from all of this that's in his book, everything that he wrote down for you as fact, he turned away from. He turned his entire back to it and went right back to where he began, the first oath that he broke. Back to the text. We have confirmed facts that we might appreciate causes, and it has never been our pretension to restore rights which are forever destroyed, except when you tried it and it didn't work. The orthodoxy of Israel, that religion which is... Y'all, it's going to kill me. The orthodoxy of Israel, that religion which is so rational, so divine, and so ill-known, condemns, no less than Christianity, the mysteries of ceremonial magic. Yeah, unless you actually read through it, and then you will find out that it is completely rife with ceremonial magic, blood sacrifice in particular. There's an awful lot of that going on, but that's not ceremonial. That's prescribed by God. That's not a ceremony. You're out of your fucking mind. We have confirmed facts. Well, so far, not so much. It has never been our pretension to restore rights, except you told us that you were performing them and that they didn't turn out the way that you expected. Right? That was your pretension. It didn't work. The orthodoxy of Israel, that religion which is so rational, so divine, and so ill-known. Are you kidding me? The entire basis of Christianity is Judaism, right? That is where they pull that religion from. Now, it is completely changed, right? There's not a lot of similarities between the two, but that is the root source material for it. So rational. Yeah, there's absolutely rationality in hitting somebody in the head with a stone because they picked up sticks on the wrong day. You're right. That is completely rational. There is nothing irrational about that whatsoever. There is nothing irrational whatsoever with saying the creator of the entirety of the heavens, every single thing in existence comes directly from this thing, right? This God. But he can't forgive me if I did something wrong unless I kill an animal. That is Judaism, right? In order for me to be forgiven for my sin, not to get to heaven, not to be redeemed from hell, but to remove the curses upon me right now, I have to kill an animal. There has to be a goat that dies, or a bull that dies, or a turtle dove that dies. Now, Christianity went a whole step farther, and they were like, all right, well, I see your goats, I see your cows, and I raise you a human. All of those are not rational. There is no reason whatsoever why God would be limited from forgiving you from a genuine turn of heart, right? You commit an act, whatever it is, I'm not even going to name one, right? But you are remorseful. And you say, God, I'm sorry. Guess what? He forgave you. It's that simple. Nobody had to die. Nothing had to die. You didn't have to jump in no river of blood. Nothing had to happen. You didn't have to eat a particular piece of bread, drink a little bit of wine. You didn't have to walk down an aisle and say a specific prayer. You just have to tell God you're sorry and genuinely mean it, right? You can't be like, smoke a cigarette and I feel bad, so I'm gonna repent from it, and then I'm gonna light up another cigarette, right? You can't do that. It's a genuine change, right? I feel bad about this situation, so I'm gonna change the situation and apologize for it. And it's really that simple, right? It's literally that easy. Nobody had to die. That is not rational. That is definitely not divine. You kidding me? And not known. You're out of your mind. From the text, from the standpoint of the tribe of Levi, See the Bible study. The exercise of transcendent magic must be considered as an usurpation of the priesthood. That is entirely why it is forbidden. Right there. This control system, which was based entirely upon this one very small subset of the people, right, taking this power unto themselves and making damn sure that you don't know that you can use it, or telling you that if you do use it, you're going to die. You're going to be condemned by God. That's wild. Now, yeah. All right. And the same reason has caused the prescription of operative magic by every official cultist. Every is a big word. We don't even have the records for every. To demonstrate the natural foundation of the marvelous, and to produce it at will, is to annihilate for the vulgar mind that conclusive evidence from miracles, which is claimed by each religion as its exclusive property and its final argument. Respect for established religions, but room also for science. We have passed, thank God, the days of inquisitions and pyres. Unhappy men, like in Europe, maybe. Definitely not in the Middle East. Unhappy men of learning are no longer murdered on the faith of a few distraught fanatics or hysterical girls. And again, in Europe and the United States, but definitely not in the Middle East. For the rest, let it be clearly understood that our undertaking is concerned with studies of the curious, and not with an impossible propaganda. Those who may blame us for daring to term ourselves magician have nothing to fear from the example, it being wholly improbable that they will ever become sorcerers. And that is going to bring us to the end of equilibrium. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult topic. I understand I hold some unconventional beliefs, and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but I do not apologize for it. Once again, I am speaking from experience, right? I'm not just reading things and pulling it out of my ass. These are the things that I state as emphatic, right? The things that I state as fact, even though they are speculative, right? They are facts to me because I have put them into practical application. I have read a lot, right? I have all kinds of source material that I pulled a whole lot of things from, but the synthesis of all that information into what I have used in an effective manner, I believe to be a divine revelation brought about by inspiration, which is how the divine talks to you, right? It is through your intuition that you hear from God. When he's telling you, don't do this thing, don't do it. When he's telling you, do this thing, go do it enthusiastically, right? It is an intuitional thing. I believe that the synthesis that I have laid out in the book and that I talk about in the members-only videos, the parts that are hidden in the various infinite integrations and esoteric playlist in a lot of different places, those are things that I have put into practice. I have, quite literally, healed myself. I asked for healing. I got shown how to heal myself through this, through taking the positive and the negative energies and multiplying them and magnetizing them inside of myself, and I have healed myself. I cannot emphasize that enough. The fact that I can talk for more than 15 minutes, the fact that I don't have to clear my throat every 2 minutes, the fact that it's not like it was a year ago, all of that is because of this. My shoulder working for the first time in 20 years, that is because of this. My back no longer killing me when I wake up, that's because of this. My leg with its accelerated healing. It is because of the things that I tell you. Right? It may all be in my mind. The placebo effect is a real thing, and maybe this is it. But I don't think so, or else I would not be relaying this. There may be other ways to do what I've done. But this one has worked. This one has worked at least for me. And as part of me getting the knowledge, I have to give the knowledge, and so I am. You are freely available to get it, right? If you don't want to pay for it, you can dig it out of the various playlists, or you can shell out a little bit of money. It's not expensive, right? You can shell out a little bit of money, and either I'll read the book for you, or you can pick up a copy and read through it. I promise you will not read it only one time if you were serious in this. But if you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow. Throw me a comment. Whether you agree or disagree with anything that was stated, put it in the box down below. And if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If there is another work you would like to see me discuss in the manner that we are doing, drop that in the box as well. And if you really like what I'm doing, hit me with that super thanks. Consider joining for a membership or picking up a copy of my book. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Fit State. Peace.